right, well finally we're getting close to being up and running with the Mercedes, the 3348. Upgrades on it. Of course I did the suspension upgrade, which wasn't too bad, but I've been working on going hydraulic on my lift, replacing the Tamiya, and I don't say stock because I had to buy this separate, but this is the Tamiya electric actuator for the dump bed. It was starting to make a lot of noise and started to act goofy, so I need to tear into it to see what was going on. Probably something in the gearbox back here, but it was something I was wanting to upgrade anyway because it's a 50-second transition time from lowest point on the bed to full raise, and this is going to be much faster. So I bought this kit. It's a Lesu kit, and of course a lot of modifications were needed, so I tried a couple of the different mounting options that I could see with it, and this is the one that worked out the best. So there's no rod going all the way through, but it's good and sturdy with it bolted through at that point with those spacers. This motor and pump come with it. Of course this whole piece comes with it with the hydraulic arm. You get some hose and you get the tank. So what I didn't realize is the other parts I would need, and this is why it's taken so long to get it done, is I also had to have a reversing valve for this particular type of arm. It won't just drop on its own, so you have to have a reversing valve. So first one I ordered, after about a month I ordered another one. This is the second one. Never did get the first one, but I did get a refund on the first one. So this is also a Lesu brand, and so I was able to fit it in there, get it mounted, got everything piped, got it tested and running. And so also with this I'm having to upgrade the radio, and so I was using the stock Tamiya radio. I wouldn't go this route again on these trucks. It's just too expensive for what you're getting. It's just a 4-channel radio. It did work really well with their MFC, but I think it's Hobby Concepts showed us how to do it right, at least with computerized radios. So I got my Flysky radio, and this is cheaper. This thing's like, yeah, really expensive. This thing's like 65 bucks, $67. Much better radio, easy programming. When it comes without the return to center, so I got to put that spring kit in there. It did come with it, so I'm going to be installing that, and I'll have that on this video as well. But one of the other things I'm running into with upgrading my Tamiya is battery location. Of course, is on the bottom on the Tamiya, and you might just relocate the battery compartment, put your battery up in the cab or something like that. Well, again, that's one of those easier said than done. And again, you'll see my tank is real high. I mean, the bed comes right down. You can't even see the cap. It comes right down to the top, which I'll show you guys. And that's so I can keep the battery box where it's at for now. Now I can relocate this down lower later on, but you notice my servo's exposed and everything. Here's the Tamiya. It mounts to the battery tray. So right there, those holes, that's where it mounts to the battery tray. And so it provides the cover for the servo, provides your toolbox or battery box, and your tank emissions, the def stuff on there. So now I don't have those details and it's just open. I might try to figure out something, cut that off and make a bracket so that I can hide that servo, but for now, guys, please forgive me. I'm just going to be running without some of the details while I do some testing and operational tests on the lift. I want to make sure everything's going to work good. And you can get these other details from Lesu, but again, it's pricey. A lot of money for that stuff. So later on, we might get those upgraded, some nice metal ones, some stuff to put in here get our scale details back. The more scale details, the better. I like it, especially stuff that's visual. But for now, we're just going operational. So I want to get this truck back operating and on the road. So we're going to do that, do some testing, make sure all the hydraulics are going to be working properly for me. And then we'll go from there, because it's not just replacing these little details here either. If I decide to relocate my battery box and get it out from underneath the truck, because everything else over here, my tanks, the air tanks, as well as my box here for my electronics, that's all mounted to the battery box. So that battery tray mounts all the scale details on here except for the cab itself. So that means I got to replace all of those items, or figure out a way to mount them to the frame without using the battery box. So that just all the details attached to that, and then that attaches to the frame. So to eliminate the battery, move it up here, I've got a lot of work to do, and of course I'm going to do the minimus right now to get it up and running. So tanks mounted high, looks a little off. I'm all right with that. I hope you guys are all right with it too. I want to get this thing up and running as soon as possible. I was waiting for this. Now that this got in, got that installed, everything functions right. So I got the radio programmed enough to where I've got everything operating. So now I just got to transfer my old radio and just do a little training for the MFC unit and kind of make it run the way I want it to run for this truck. And I'll show you some of the programming that I'm going to do in particular for this guy, but she's almost ready to go. So we're going to get this radio fixed up, get my return to center on the left stick so that we can get this thing running. All right, so this is my first time doing one of these radios, putting this return to center kit in here. The first thing you want to do is pull off these nice grippy pads that this radio has. I love the way this radio feels in my hands. But we'll get those pulled off there, nice and simple. And that will show you where the screws are at that you got to take loose. 4 screws. And so we'll take and get those 4 screws there removed, just a small Phillips, and get those undone. And there's probably several different ways you can do this once you get inside here on this thing, but I just thought I'd show you what I did. It's pretty simple. Don't forget to remove the batteries out of the radio. I did. So we'll get those out of there and get this thing apart. Now that the screws are all out, and take the back off the radio. Remember, be careful, there's a couple of wires still attached there. You got your power wires as well as the 2 back switch wires. So we'll want to go ahead and take those wires off there. They're just on a nice little plug, so we can disconnect those and get the back of this radio out of the way.
you can see here we have that metal strap that gives us the friction, and so we're going to have to remove that metal strap and then put in our new parts, which go on the opposite side of the gimbal there. So I tried taking this wire connector off here just to get it all out of the way so I could work on it. That wasn't happening, and I wasn't going to break the wires or the little board, the printed circuit board that's attached to, so I decided to work around it. So we're just going to leave it there while we install everything, and I found it's not really that much in the way anyway, so it will work out just fine. Now here's the bag of material, and I'll show you here what comes in it. So you have just a few pieces here. You got your control arm, 2 pins, and then the spring retainer right there, and the spring itself. And that's all that comes with it. It's actually a pretty simple change out here. So let's get on with it. So we'll take out this friction bar here and get that out of the way, and that won't be going back in. So that piece, you can hold on to it in case you ever want to change your radio back, or throw it away, whichever you want to do. Alright, now we'll carefully empty that bag out, dump those parts all out to where we can access them, and we'll start with our rocker arm here, and that's the piece that's got to go right down there, but underneath the pin on the gimbal, and it's got to fit in the front, and you can see there's just not enough room just to slide it under, so we're going to have to take a couple of the mounting brackets loose, just to push that gimbal out just a little ways. We don't have to take it all the way out. So get that piece in place. Those little pins fit right down in that slot, and you can see it's underneath the gimbal pivot arm there. So we'll be able to put those brackets back in place. So there's the arm. It's up underneath there. That's where it just sits there underneath. We'll put those brackets back on there, put those 4 screws back in to secure our gimbal in place, and then we'll move on with the next portion. right here, that's our spring retainer. So that's what our other end of our spring is going to connect to. The other end connects to that arm that we put underneath the gimbal. So that thing will slide right in there. And it's a little interesting fit when you don't have a thumb to work with. As you seen, my thumb's kind of bandaged up there from a little X-Acto knife accident. Don't ask. But we'll get this piece in here with our mechanical thumb. Get it put in there. Now this piece, I thought it would screw in. It does not screw in. It actually just sits there. As you can see, it just, if you turn the radio upside down, it'll just fall out. So it just sits in there. The spring holds it in place, so there's nothing to worry about there. So you just don't unscrew the screw that's in there, and you just slide that in place. And then our next step, we got to put these little tiny pins in the side of the gimbal. That's what that little rocker arm catches on, that the spring attaches to. So we'll get those pins put in place. There's two tiny little holes real easy to see on the side of that gimbal, and that's where those go in at. So there you go. So you can see those two pins installed on the gimbal, and they just push in just a little ways, as long as you got plenty of clearance there. They're nice and secure, and then so that's what's actually going to control that gimbal. So now all I got to do is install the spring. So we'll grab this little guy right here, and he's real tiny. I tried to get the camera to focus, but it's so small it didn't want to focus on that little spring. I have seen smaller, but this is a pretty small one. But it's nice and really easy. So there's a hook on the top end of that arm that is part of the gimbal there, and then it attaches to that one tiny little piece that just slides in that little slotted area for it on the fixed portion of the radio. We just slide it up, get it kind of popped in place there, make sure it's secure. There we go. And voila, it's done. So now you can see how those pins work with that rocker arm. So you just have the one spring controlling it. Really nice little setup. But you can always just mimic the other side over there, and you're doing the same thing on this gimbal. So now we have our return to center. So all we got to do is get our radio put back together.
All right, so I'm going to run through a few things that I found on my radio here that I've done for programming and the such. When I just centered the stick, I had about that much where it wasn't centered. All right, so it was just sitting like that even when the stick was returned to center. That was its return to center. So what you'll want to do if you find that same problem is you want to get into the programming mode, get in here, go to your system. Okay, and in the system area, we'll scroll down here to stick adjust. Select sticks adjust. Now you can't back out of this screen until you run through the entire stick adjust. So we run it up, down, left, right. Same with the right stick, up, down, left, right. And then your variable wheels up there, you also have to run through those. Okay, so sticks adjust. Now we can go back out. And once I did that, then everything was centered. So everything returns to center. Everything looks good. Okay, and you notice I'm only at about 75% on those. The throttle's at 100%. I have my dual rate switch programmed in. So we go. Now we're at 100%. All right, so now that's part of what I had set up for the Tamiya. So let's go for my Tamiya MFC unit setup on the radio. Now, if you don't have the MFC unit, a lot of this stuff you don't have to worry about. So I've got the MFC, and I like to use the multi-functions, be able to shut the engine off, start it up, turn the lights on, everything from the remote. And so for using this and getting rid of the Tamiya has the manual trims on it, and you would run those trims up so you get 100% throw on that channel, and that's how you get the multi-function out of it. Well, since I don't have manual trim switches on here, we'll do it with the switch here. So first thing you got to do is when we go in here, and let's go back to our functions. And you got to set up a rate switch. So I set my dual switch rate switch to the second switch, switch D. And they're nice. These ones are labeled switch C, switch D. So just a 2-position switch. So I got that set. And then you go into your rates and exponential. Okay. And just set the rate up to 75%. And you do that on, sorry, rates and expo. You do that on, oh, I did it again. Go into rates and expo, and there we go, channels. So you can do it for each of those channels. So everything except for the throttle. So channel 1, 2, and 4. And I set those up to 75% on all of those. Okay, so now we go back. So I set that up 75%. So each of those then, as you can see, are 75%. I flipped the switch, and now they're 100%. 75 with the switch up. All right, so that'll give me my multifunction control on the MFC. Now, for my style of driving, I like to drive with one hand. So this is the shift for the Tamiya. You would go left for low speed, middle gear, third gear. It switches the transmission, but also has an effect on the ESC, which is part of the MFC unit, both in the sound and what it actually provides for throttle power to the motor. So when you're in low speed and you're going, you'll get a different throttle sound And then second gear, same thing, different throttle sound, as well as it provides more power to the motor aside from switching the actual transmission to second gear. It gives you even more throttle response. I found this out when I was setting up my other radio for the King Hauler. And so I'm going to do something a little different with this radio, and I put my transmission on a switch. And so that way, whenever you're like in low gear, I want it to act the same as it did with the stock Tamiya radio that I put in. So I do that by mixing it. So first gear, I'm mixing to 75%. So that's, say 75%. So I mix it to 75%. When I'm in second gear, it's in neutral, just as if the stick's in the middle. So my throttle up, down, it'll act just like it's in second gear. And then third gear will act, so that way it will mimic the old radio, because I like the way it performed. Just having the 3 speeds, but getting the sound and everything synchronized with those transmission speeds. Now, the thing that you might notice is I'm on channel 1 over here, channel 4 over here. So I did switch the operation of the sticks because I like to drive with one hand. So I want my steering over here, which is channel 1. Well, the cool thing about this radio, and I don't know if you guys have noticed this or not, is that's a function you can program into this radio. So you go over here, we go into the system mode, and go over here to your sticks mode, and check this out. So we're running M4. So let's see, 3. The standard mode is M2, where you have your throttle up, down, and then channel 4 is over here. So that would be my shift. So that's kind of just the standard setup. Well, you can actually change what position or what channel each of those sticks controls. And so mine is M4. So that way I've got my throttle, channel 3. But now my steering, which was channel 1, instead of being over here, see, by choosing M4, it just switched it over. So now I'm controlling channel 1 with this stick, which is my steering, and I can leave the radio, the receiver, alone. I don't have to mess with it. And that really helped me out with my Volvo articulating dump truck. I wanted to be able to steer here instead of having to get in there and try and change the channel wiring around on the receiver. All I had to do was just change the stick mode, and voila, that fast it was done. So I'm running M4 on my stick mode, and that for me works fabulous. So everyone can set it up however you like, but that way I steer and my throttle, and I don't have to worry about, even when I'm steering and running my throttle, you know, I'm not having to worry about shifting and throttle, and then I have to have my right hand for my steering. I'm able to do it just all at once, and I'll be able to have my switching for my transmission right there. And I might switch it over to this channel. I could do that too, if I want to be able to just kind of reach up there and just flip it, which is super simple to do. But to get that, let me show you where we're at here. Get our function, and we'll go to our mixes. All right, so we'll select mix and try not to, okay, and we'll go up to 2. So this is mix 2. So I just assigned this switch to channel 7 as my master. Channel 4, of course, we're running, this is channel 1. Now this is channel 4. So I don't have to worry about shifting my gear shift now, because I put my offsets at 0, but I just go negative 75 and a positive 95. So neutral on the switch is neutral, and then a negative, and positive. So that I have my full functioning shifting, again mimicking that Tamiya radio. So that's just as if I pushed that stick over. So that would be my first gear, and then second gear and third gear. And now I'm doing that all with mixing on the switch. So now to keep the multifunction working properly, again, we had our dual rate switch set up here. So there's our 100%. Switch it up, we're at 75%. So I just have to remember to keep my switch in neutral when I'm running my multifunction. So I need the truck in second gear when I'm running the other features of the MFC, which the only effect will be once I go to 100% on there. Because if I have my switch in any position, it just runs it to 100% and it won't allow it to. It only takes it back to neutral. So I have to have the switch in the neutral or second gear position, in the middle position. All right, so that covers that aspect. Now I have my dumper, the hydraulic pump, and I've got the reversing switch programmed in here already. To do that, I assigned my switch to channel 5, that will be my pump. And then I assigned VRA to my reversing valve. So I already got those put in there, but that's mix 1. So now what I had to do on this one, because the pump only runs one direction. So channel 6 is my master, that's VRA. My slave is channel 5, which was the switch. I just had to put an offset of 100%. On the negative, I had to go with a minus 100, and then on the positive, plus 100. And I'm going to show you how that functions in here. Okay, so there's my switch. That's pump on, pump off, pump on, pump off. So now with my variable rate switch, which is channel 6, you can see the pump starting to run and it's variable speed now. So channel 6, you notice the pump's on with it running that direction. Then if I go in the other direction, see that's got the pump running on with it as well. So that's why I have to set it up the way that it was set up there, to make sure that the pump's running in the same direction, channel 5 always moving in that direction versus running this way. So pump's always on no matter which direction channel 6 is running. So pump's always just coming on as I'm changing the direction of the reversing valve. So that got that set up. Let's see if there's anything else in here. I think that's it. There is something else that you might want to do. This is what I like to do. And I got to do it with my other radios, but the Failsafe. So it's what happens if, you know, your radio shuts off, if your batteries die. I'm running lithium batteries in here, so they're all or not. They will just die, and then the radio's off. So it's kind of whatever the machine was doing at the time, that's what it continues to do until I unplug it or restore signal. So with Failsafe, I like to turn these on. We won't go channel 1. We'll go channel 3 is our throttle. That's 4. Let's go with 3. So channel 3, we'll turn it on, and we want it at 0%. So that's, see, that's our neutral stop position. So the truck could be rolling, you could be going full throttle even, and once it goes into failsafe mode, it will set it back to 0%. So it'll go neutral throttle. So I don't have to worry about my truck running off or running into anything. It'll just come to a rolling stop. So we go back, and you notice now it says 0%. So now I want to do the same thing. I'm not too worried about what the other channels do. Maybe the steering, put it back to neutral too. So that would be 1. We'll turn it on, and we'll have it set up in the neutral position. The other channels don't really matter what they're doing. Channel 5 though, our pump, that one matters to me. I'm going to turn that one on, because if I'm running dump sequence, if I'm either bringing it down or putting it up, remember I don't have a bypass valve on my system. I'm using the mix as my safety to keep from overpressurizing the system. But if I was to lose radio signal, my pump would continue to run if I was in the pump mode when that happened. Don't want that. So you can see channel 5, there's on, off. So I want it at 0% as well. So now we got channel 5, channel 3, and channel 1 all set with their fail-safes at 0%. So that'll put my steering back to neutral. And let me actually look at that real quick again. Channel 1, yep, that's my steering. So channel 1. So that way, and I've had these happen several times where I don't put a fresh charged batteries in here and it dies on me. My dozer has taken off, and I'm just like, all of a sudden they'll quit responding, and it's like, what's going on? And it's the radio shut off. So, and I've had that happen too, because I shut the alarm function off on here so that it's not beeping at me all the time when I just leave the radio sitting. So I'll shut the sounds off, and then I don't hear the beep, the tone, the transmitter battery will just go out. It's gone, and I lose signal. And then my vehicle's doing just whatever it was doing. If it's just sitting, it'll usually just sit there and not do anything. But if I've been driving and I've lost it before, and I've had to chase them down and unplug the battery, not very much fun. So I do need to set the fail-safes up on my other radios, but I'm already set up on this one now. So I did it for my other Tamiya on the radio I'm using for that one, on the King Hauler. So that way, if something were to happen, it loses signal, it's not just taking off and running down the road. It causes a lot of damage, and you can break a lot of things. So fail-safes are a good thing to set up on your radio. So I was doing some testing on the truck, and it kept pulling to the right. The steering just acted funny. My servo mount was all busted up, so it was allowing the servo to move quite a bit. So I temporarily just have it hot glued in place, just to kind of hold that upper support until my new servo mount arrives. So, which I ordered an aluminum one, so hopefully it will fit. Maybe we'll do an install on that when that comes and see how that works. But this thing was just cheap plastic, and it's just shattered all up through here, busted up all through here, and even just like glass. So not a good servo mount by any means. Hopefully the temporary fix will let us run some testing for a while. All right, guys, here it is. Moment of truth, what we've been waiting for. Let's see how this thing works. I get that back gate smoother. All right, so we'll time it, and I'll put the amount of time on here, but the OEM Tamiya electric actuator was 50 seconds from this position to all the way up. This one is much faster. That's what I was really after, getting that speed on that dump. Now I'll work on this. That bed latch will work. And we'll wait for more upgrades to arrive and get her upgraded, but I think this will work.